Hi, I'm Ron Morgan, and I've been asked to talk a little bit about the sanctuary movement at CBC that began and ran for several years in the mid-80s. Like many things at CBC, it began really with a study course that we did on Sunday mornings in liberation theology, and evolved into a conversation with other people in the Philadelphia area about what we could do to support refugees from El Salvador and Guatemala who were fleeing from home because of the wars that were going on there, that were supported in part by our government's fear of takeover of communism in our southern borders. It really began as a kind of a humanitarian and political response to our understanding that the international conventions on refugees stated that a person who fled from a country because of a fear for their life should not be returned to that country. And so the idea was to use churches and synagogues, friends meetings, to give those people a place to be safe and also a place from which to talk about what was happening in their countries. It became much more personal than that. For example, when Mauricio came to CBC in the mid-80s, we were afraid that he would be arrested right out of the church because he was an illegal immigrant. And so for a long time there were people from CBC who spent every night in the church with him, overnight, just so that if something did happen there would be somebody who spoke English and who understood what was happening there with him at all times. And that meant that we got to know him very personally. And when he left and when Pedro came, the case was the same, in that these folks were in and out of our homes and our lives in such a way that they became good friends of ours, friends that we knew very well. And so from becoming strictly a political and human rights issue, it became a very personal issue. In fact, one time, not too long ago, we sat down and figured out that between 1984 and around 2005 or so, over 100 people from Central Baptists have visited Central America, primarily at the invitation of people that we met through the sanctuary movement. And that included our visits with Ruth and Alex, who were here actually living in the sanctuary apartment with Pedro during the time when the Jesuits were killed in El Salvador and when they simply feared that it was too dangerous for them to go home. I think what we've discovered from those ways that we have interacted with Salvadorans in particular, from their visiting us to our visiting their churches and their communities and their homes in El Salvador, is that El Salvador has got a tremendous population of people who have taken the gospel's call for justice very, very seriously and have lived their lives and who have organized their churches and their communities around that call for justice. So that from this we got not only the sense that we were good citizens acting to call our government into account for a despicable treatment of people fleeing for their lives as refugees, but an inspiration for the way that we might live our lives together.